The learning objectives today in this class are one. I didn't notice that. First, teach the value of healthy family traditions. Yeah, that's what we want to do, is help you understand that healthy traditions are important and they're valuable. 2, identify existing family traditions and help your clients evaluate which ones they wish to keep and help them understand why they want to have these family traditions. Assess family circumstances and their strengths. Assist them in adopting old traditions and reforming them and make them current so that they're applicable to their children today, or help them create new ones. And the last one is for you. When you leave here today, you'll be able to list 3 ways that family traditions can really foster family connections. Which traditions do your families enjoy the most? Your clients. Man, I wish we would have used a different color. Are these yours? Oh, sorry, this is my wife's.
Well, it's fun to be here together today. We like bringing the 2 perspectives of our history. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, we like bringing the perspective of our 2 paths together with this. But you know what I hope you think about when you look at this slide is that family traditions are, sometimes they're very structured and formal and organized, that things that everyone has, like, you know, what do you do on Christmas, or how do you celebrate Thanksgiving? And sometimes people think about those as being the traditions. Nobody knows about the grilled cheese sandwich tradition. But you help your families to start thinking about what traditions do they have, what things do they do over and over again. Sometimes those are going to be yearly or, you know, special event traditions, but probably even more powerful are the ones that come with different seasons, or the ones that come just daily or weekly. The rituals, the patterns, what we do, so that, you know, in good times, kids will be able to look forward to that. Oh, you know, when I go home, Mom or Dad, or when we have dinner, this is what we do. And I can count on that. And when it's a good time, that's great. It creates a stronger and stronger connection. But then think about it. When times get tough, then they have that to fall back on. So even though I didn't pass my test today, or even though my friends won't play with me anymore, or even though, you know, I didn't get that part in the school play, we're still going to do that same routine. I can count on this. It's part of the rhythm of my life that I can count on in good times and in bad. And then helping your families think about, well, how did some of their traditions start? Are they just keeping traditions that they've already had? And are those really working for their family now? Maybe they have great traditions that they grew up with, and they're bringing those into their family now. Maybe they had some traditions that weren't so great. Like maybe they're in the family they grew up in, now we just turn the TV on and I'll watch TV while we're eating dinner. Is that tradition really working for you? They might not think of that as a tradition, right? But that's the way the family does things. And asking them to think, is the way that your family is doing the routine things, the rituals that they have day after day, week after week, do they really reflect the family's values? So helping them get to those core values and thinking about what are the values that they have. Do they want to have more peace in their home? Do they want to have more fun? Do they want to have more excitement? Do they want to be more comfortable? These are things that we can help them identify their values and know. So I like to take some time when I'm working with a family to assess their strengths. Some of them are really basic. I'm looking at, sort of I'm a social worker, so it's from a sort of a bio-psychosocial, spiritual point of view. I'm looking all around. What are their strengths and their connections with the community, their connections with God, their connections with each other, and then their connection with themselves. How do they feel about themselves? And because you're going to use these strengths that they have to help them create powerful traditions that really work with their values and who they are, their identity. I find that in order to help families build really strong traditions, they need to have the interpersonal skills to be able to identify, well, the intra and interpersonal skills. So who am I? What are my thoughts? What do I think? What do I believe? What do I want? Can I hold on to that while I ask you, what are your thoughts? How do you feel? What do you want? Whether that's with their spouse or with their kids. Can they allow their kids or their spouse to want something different, to feel differently about things? If you picked up one of the handouts from the back, you'll see this, the initiator and inquirer continuum. And this is from Ellen Bader and Peter Pearson at the Couples Institute, and was originally created for helping couples be able to express, like, who am I? And be able to hold on and tell their partner, who am I? What do I believe? What do I value? And it works just as great with between the couples and between the parents and the children. Who am I? What do I believe? What do I think? What do I want? Can I hold on to that and not take it personally while I listen to you? What do you believe? What do you think? What do you want? What's fun for you? And then, so if you look at this, this is a handout that you can use. So if you look at the, like, let's take at the top, the initiator. This is the person who's saying, this is what I want to say about myself. And you can see on the very far, on the left-hand side, when a person has really hard time with this task, maybe they recognize when they get upset, but they don't bring their feelings up. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. They're not willing to reveal themselves. Or maybe they just get very judgmental and they get critical and they lecture their partner or their kids rather than revealing themselves. Does that make sense? That difference between I'm revealing myself. I could even be honest and say, I'm upset, I'm hurt, I'm angry about this thing that happened, or that you did even. This can be, but I'm just telling you how I feel about it. I'm able to express my thoughts and my feelings without getting angry at you. Does that make sense? The difference. So you can use this and help your clients see where they are along this continuum. Where what we're stretching for is that throughout the conversation, I'm able to stay interested. I want to know what you're thinking. I'm curious about you. I want to know what you think about me and how I function. I want to know about you and how you're functioning. And it's a great, as people are moving from one end of the continuum up to the other, this helps them have an idea about what they're shooting for, right? If they don't have a model for it in their head, this will help them move along the way. And then the same one with the inquirer, because these two aspects are so important. Can they share their own thoughts and feelings, but then can they listen to the others? Because if you don't have this foundation where I can really hear you without judging you and without trying to run over you or try to force you to change, or I don't like what you think, then you're not going to be able to share enough as a family to decide, well, what kind of traditions do we want to have and what does that represent? And that we can be able to navigate those experiences where we have some win-win solutions. And the other thing that I like to use for assessing strengths is, of course, most of you probably are familiar with Martin Seligman's work. I love his book, Authentic Happiness, but he has a website, which is www.AuthenticHappiness, and on there is a, if you go to the website, there is a strengths assessment, and you can have your clients go and take the strengths assessment, and it's really beautiful because it helps clients really walk through and identify their personal strengths and think about and also their values. It's very much a values-based, strengths-based assessment that can really help in figuring out, well, what kind of traditions do we want to have? What traditions do we already have that we want to keep? Which ones should we throw out? Which ones are we going to alter? New ones that we can create. Because when you share fun times together, you build up this storehouse of these really treasured memories. And they can be simple things. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. We don't have to go on a cruise or have some elaborate event in order for this to be meaningful. I have great memories of sitting around the kitchen table on Sunday morning and taking turns reading the comics out loud. Our oldest son, Paul, and his family, he has 8 kids, and it is a tumble party on the floor. Friday night, they pick a video, everybody brings their pillows and their blankies, and fall asleep, and it's one of their most favorite traditions that the kids love to have. They don't want to miss out on the Friday night slumber party. So if there's a special foods you like, if you have Taco Tuesday or Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, walking to the bagel shop, doing the crossword puzzle, little traditions like this become this sort of deep reservoir of connection and belonging, and a sense that this is who we are as a family. In the introduction, they mentioned the book that we published, and it actually said 2018, but it actually just came out in 2019. And if you look on our website, which is at resilientchild.com, there's a lot of resources there on helping that are just available for you.
Show them the cover.
Yeah, so this is what the book looks like. But there are a lot of resources on the Resilient Child website that the qualities that research shows are important for a family to be resilient. How to cultivate gratitude, forgiveness, self-worth, wisdom. Family traditions is a huge resiliency skill. Families that have strong traditions raise more resilient children. Children who are able to not only face what's happening today, but then they're ready to face whatever's going to happen in their future. I mean, how many of you think you know what your clients' families are going to face in the future? Right? We might have some ideas, but, we started writing this book about resiliency, and the first thing that happened was Cal fell off his bike and got a concussion. And while he was struggling with his concussion, we found out he had cancer. And then he's in and out of the hospital and chemotherapy and surgery, and you never know. I mean, it's like the universe says, so you think you know a little about resiliency, right? Let's try this out. But our families that we work with, we don't know what they're going to face either. So this is important for you to be able to help them be prepared. And there are such huge benefits of spending that time together. It's easier and more natural for families to talk on a regular basis and develop these deeper connections, develop those communication skills, be able to ask questions, be able to identify themselves, know what their values are, and so that they can share them. If you find out the family parents value service, help them figure out how to make a tradition of working in the soup kitchen or working in the community garden. You've got a really hard-working person who just really values that hard work. Use that as a strength. Take on some projects. Find that satisfaction of working together. They value being grateful or forgiving. Express it. Help them make a tradition of having that pattern in their daily life that, just before bed or when we get up in the morning, or find the time to kind of hook it onto. We already do this, and that's a place where we could put in a new tradition about gratitude. Because traditions are a great way to have fun together. And it's a great way to pass on your interests and your skills. So I love camping. So guess what? We have family traditions of camping. But if you love going shopping, have family traditions of shopping. If you love going to music and hearing music, have family traditions that involve music. It gives you a chance to help your clients teach the skills that they have so that their kids can know how to do these things and enjoy that together. And then this is so important. Sometimes let the kids take the lead. What do they want to do? What do they find interesting? What are they good at? Let them teach. Let them figure it out. And you parents will be so surprised. It's so fun when you challenge parents to let their kids be in charge sometimes. Come up with some great stuff. Because family traditions are meant to be flexible. It can be a great day for a family walk. And in the families that you work with, it's a very natural way to start building these lasting memories of love and connection that kids can fall back on when times get rough. Because that's the doing it ahead of time, building that strength, building that foundation so that these traditions can help those kids when they get challenges, when somebody is texting them in inappropriate ways, when somebody's bullying them, when somebody's trying to encourage them to do things that they don't feel comfortable with. These family traditions can keep them have that deep resource to make a difference.
I just want to say, I don't know if you know, but kissing can be a great family tradition. I don't know too many people that don't enjoy it. Wouldn't want to pucker up once in a while to their companion, But we have in our family a kissing tradition. Now you're going, whoa. Well, let me tell you about it. When I was little, and the whole time I was growing up in my family, I remembered whenever my dad came home, left for work, every time, he leaned over and gave my mom 3 little kisses. And when he came home from work, he leaned over and gave her 3 little kisses. When he went to a meeting, church meeting or whatever, 3 little kisses when he said goodbye and 3 little kisses when he came back. 3 little kisses. I love you. That was their tradition of expressing their love for one another, and they never got tired of it. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, when my mom lay on the bed dying, she only had an hour or 2 left. My dad leaned over and he whispered in her ear, "Can I have a kiss?" She puckered up and she gave him 3 little kisses. My sister came along right after. I said, "Mom, will you give me a kiss?" Nothing. 3 little kisses were the last communication that my mother and father had after 57 or plus years of marriage. I love you, Paul. I love you, Lois. 3 little kisses. And the thing that's amazing about that is my sisters and I have all adopted that same little thing. 3 little kisses. I love you. Sometimes when I was sitting on the stand at the church, I would lean over or look over at my wife and I'd go like this. I love you. Again, 3 little fingers signifying I love you. And she'd go like this. I love you too. What a wonderful tradition to have. And it's important. I mean, those 3 little kisses really established an important foundation in our family. And not only that, it's gone down to my sisters and to several of their kids and our kids. I love you, honey. And daily routines are a good place to start family traditions. They can create a comforting, familiar pattern and expectations. Who would have thought 3 little kisses would have such a significant impact on a family. We can do whatever at family greetings. At family greetings are a good place to start traditions. Saying goodbye, getting ready for work, bedtime stories. What a great opportunity. Now, this didn't happen as a bedtime story, but a year or so ago, my wife and I were going somewhere and we had our grandkids in there. And those grandkids were rowdy and ruckus. Is that the same word? Anyway, you get the meaning. And they were yelling and stuff, and I said, wait a minute, I said, would you guys like to hear a story? And they said, yeah. So I started telling them a story, a true story, a family story. And they were quiet. And then, do you want to hear another? Yeah. For the next hour, one story right after another. Kept their attention, kept them quiet. The point I'm saying that is the same concept, whether it's family stories or a book story, can have a positive effect on our children. Anne's got a great tradition with doing dishes with her daughters. While they were doing dishes, she would do, you have one daughter, every day a different daughter did the dishes. But so when she was with them, she didn't just say, go in there and do the dishes. She says, let's come in and let's do the dishes together. That was a time for her to talk. That was a time for her to laugh. That was a time for her to hear how her daughter's day went. That was a time when she could shed some tears if she wanted, or whatever. What a great tradition. And it was passed on to one of her daughters. She's only got one daughter with a child, but it's been passed on. And then making beds together. That's not a tradition that Ann and I have. Because she realizes that it's pretty impossible to make that tradition with me. So, but it's still a good way, a good tradition to have.
It's a fun one because it is actually easier to make a bed with somebody than by yourself, and it can be fun. The point is just that those little things that we have to do anyway, if you can help the families that you work with see how by weaving those tasks that you have to do anyway and making a tradition about how you do it, how it pulls you together, and having a good time doing that. And why do we do that? Why do we make the bed? Why do we cook dinner? Why do we eat at the table instead of in front of the TV? These are really important in helping families figure out what their values are, what they're trying to create in their family, and just weaving it deeply into their everyday life. So, family traditions start somewhere, right? So ask your families, why not today? Ready, set, go. What's holding them back? Because very simple traditions can provide lots of fond memories and create important anchors for the kids and for the parents too as they grow up. It provides a reliable structure to the day. Kids have something to look forward to, and there's a lot of connection that happens. And that's probably the most important thing, is to think about those daily connections that happen. And then you also want to think about, besides the daily connections, what are we thinking about those other routines that are broader than daily? So you can you think about the daily connections that are there, and it'll help you through this today, even if it's a good day, and through the tougher times. But it's then beginning to think, okay, besides the daily connections, then how am I going to move from that to the connections that are just happen once a year maybe, or those seasonal things that happen. There's certain times of year that are really conducive to celebrating, just like right now, we're starting to have fall. Is there a yearly tradition around fall? Some of those are commercialized around what Halloween looks like or Thanksgiving looks like, but what about creating your own? How do you get those tasks done? How do you put the garden to bed? How do you rake the leaves? Do you go up in the mountains? Do you talk about the different smells? These seasonal traditions have a really great power to keep kids going through this difficult times when they have those difficult times. Cal's family has a tradition with his grandparents about making gooseberry ice cream. Anybody ever had gooseberry ice cream? Well, want to hear about gooseberry ice cream?
Yeah, this was a tradition. My mom's family, they kind of lived all over the country, and once a year at least, if everybody came home, we'd do this, and if they didn't, my grandparents would do this with my uncle's family and our family. But it was an interesting tradition. Every summer, as we got together and we were just having a lot of fun at a family activity, usually around the 24th of July, my grandfather would pull out the handmade ice cream maker, get the ice and the salt and make the ice cream mix and dump it in, and said, we're going to make some gooseberry ice cream. And everybody got excited. He'd start with the little kids, and they'd crank it. Why? Because it was easy. And then it got a little bit harder. As the kids got older, they got more and more of the harder jobs. Well, finally, it was done. And everybody in the family was looking forward to the gooseberry ice cream. Everybody in the family knew my grandfather's secret. You see, gooseberry ice cream really wasn't gooseberry ice cream. It was banana ice cream. Everybody knew that we were going to be eating banana ice cream, but nobody gave it, no one ruined the surprise, of course, and it was fun. It's a tradition that came up with our family throughout the entire life of my grandfather. What a great, and we all enjoyed it. Now, traditions that family choose to carry on should probably reflect the personality and the values of that family. Are you a fun, loving jokester family? Are you witty? Are you playful? Are you serious-minded? Not knowing how to smile very much. Are you calm and quiet family? Or are you boisterous? Are you musical? Not me, not our. What about athletic? Let me tell you a tradition. My son, when my oldest son was 6 years old, I bought season football tickets to BYU because they were so cheap. And as he grew every year, I bought season football tickets. My next son came along, so we bought another one. So we had now 4 tickets, and we got my sisters involved. So we had like 10 or 12 tickets or whatever. And you know, I had a neighbor who decided he was going to do that with his son. After the season, I asked him, are you going to do this again next year? His comment, no, it takes too much of my time. I don't have time to go. And my thought was, you are missing out. Because it took a whole day. But what's 6 Saturdays in a year? But you know what? My sons and I developed a relationship. We were able to talk, we were able to laugh, we were able to enjoy the game, and we developed a love and interest in sports. And now, you know what? I've got 7 season tickets for me and my 2 sons and 4 grandsons, and they alternate who goes with their dad. What a great tradition. And they love it, and I love it, and I attribute a lot of the growth and development of my family to those football games and the time that it took to go there. I didn't have time to, anyway.
So, your thoughts about helping the families that you work with develop more traditions based on their strengths and on their interests, and particularly their values. Any questions or thoughts about that? Yeah.
I love the movie, and I've done it, but in our cell phone age, everyone wants to watch their own. No one wants to share
So
that
true.
experience.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it is so true. And how we're going to adjust to that, right?
yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of different things that we can do, and it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. Obviously, it works better if you start younger, before they get there. And the other thing that we have found, and it's a little bit hard for a lot of parents, they want their kids to get off their cell phones, but the parents themselves are on their cell phones. And in my experience, you have to start small. So you can start small with something that you're going to do as a family, that you're going to capture them and capture their eyes. It's going to be time in, right? Not time out. And think about something that particular family, this is a very compelling thing that they would really like to do. And then make it a big deal, like we're all going to put our cell phones away. And even if it's something that I'm going to do for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and just talk about it, you know, or we might go. I've had families that like, okay, we're going to go out to dinner, and before we go out, we're going to make a point that we're all leaving our phones in the glove box, or we're all leaving our phones at the house, and we're going to be gone for a whole hour without our phones. And sometimes up in the mountains is a great way to do it, especially if you figure be smart and go where you don't have cell phone service, just to get started and help kids start to see what this feels like. Because I do think it's important. You know, the social media is so compelling, and it's so clear that connection with their peers is important to kids, but at the same time, they're connecting with peers. Their peers are not mature enough to really provide that secure, safe anchor. They can be very fickle, and you see the problems in the social media. Yeah.
I think having part of the family tradition that they put their phones away when they do too is really important.
Yeah.
I counsel
Yeah.
teenagers who won't go to women's camp because they don't want to be without their phones.
Yeah.
I've counseled with missionaries in the MTC
Yeah.
that felt like they needed to go home because they couldn't handle it without their
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
So I think a really powerful and very healthy part of the tradition would be the phones
Yep.
to go away.
Yep.
because they need
The
them.
phones can go away, and then they need those experiences. And I do say start small and start with something that they actually might really want to do, and that they can experience what it feels like, and to have fun and be apart from that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important as parents and grandparents and as therapists to teach the purpose of the movie.
Yeah.
The purpose of cell phones is connection.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've tried to teach the families I counsel with, and I do it in my family with my grandkids, sometimes they don't appreciate it too much, but is that when we're going to watch a movie, they know that grandma has the remote, and that there's going to be some things in the movie that may or may not be appropriate or may cause us to feel certain emotions
Right.
and that kind of thing. And she's going to pause it, and we're going to talk about it. So this becomes a teaching moment.
Yeah.
And I've been pleasantly surprised of how well my grandchildren have responded to that.
Yeah.
Because they get to be heard and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
talk about
right,
how
really,
they're feeling
right, yeah.
and those kind of things. So sometimes I think we as parents and grandparents are watching this movie and we just get lost in the movie and we don't, we lost great teaching opportunities and great connecting opportunities.
That is so well said. Yes, I totally agree with you.
I'm a big believer that we often ask our clients to do things that they have not obviously practiced in their own life.
Right.
And in their own families, they've not, many of them have not done these type of traditions.
Right.
And so giving an assignment, they often will struggle. They may try and do it, but they don't. It's the good, better, best model. They do it, so it's good. But to make it the best, they might have to do, and we might have to give them some tools of what they're going to do to process a movie. Not
Yeah.
everyone knows how to process.
Right,
We do this
right.
for a living, and it feels very easy for us. But
Right.
many people may need to have some tool handed to them. You're going to have a popcorn night with your kids, but here's 20 questions to ask your kids while you're there, because you're an introvert and you're not going to, so you just have to, you might have to help them prepare for that moment.
I love that. I love that. If you go to our website on Resilient Child, one of the resiliency tools that we really teach is how to dream and set a goal. So I have this dream of a family together time. We're going to make popcorn. Now, what are the steps that I need to go through to get that done? And that's my dream. Doesn't necessarily mean my kids are going to have that dream. So if I want that to happen, what do I do that makes it more likely that it can happen that way? And being able to take those worksheets and help families work through, like, okay, how do you go from having a popcorn night together is an important dream. It's part of that bigger picture dream of, I want to have a family that has fun together and that feels connected and feels safe, right? And you're exactly right, teaching them those steps that you go along to how are you going to make that happen. It's so powerful. I really appreciate that. And also that initiator and inquirer continuum that we talked about earlier, like, can you articulate to your kids what you're thinking and what you're feeling about this movie, about this activity, about what you're trying to create? Can you listen to how they feel about it? And accept, this is so hard, accept whatever they say. If they're, don't like that, that's cool. You don't have, just because I like it doesn't mean you have to like me. Tell me what's about it. Let's letting the kids lead sometimes. You pick the next movie. We'll talk about it. So powerful. Yeah. These steps along the way to make these really strong family traditions that you can weave your parents' values and the skills to raise resilient children who are going to have these experiences that are part of their everyday life, part of the rhythm of the day, of the week, of the month, of the season, of the year, that will help them to know how to create great traditions themselves as they go forward and make families themselves. So some of the traditions that you have, it's really powerful if you can involve multiple generations. Not possible in every family, but even if it's not possible in person to involve multiple generations, you can still pass on information and help the families think about what do they know about their family heritage, where they came from, what were the traditions they grew up with. And this is a really interesting thing. The research shows that not just passing down everything was perfect, everything was good, everything has been nice, but it's actually powerful to help kids know, there have been things that have gone wrong. There have been problems. There have been difficulties. You come from a family who knows how to face difficulties. And if that's not a tradition, you come from a family that's now learning how to face difficulties. You come from a family that can triumph over this. They can, feel part of something that's bigger than themselves as they connect across the generations and go looking back and looking forward. And then weaving the children in. They're here. They're part of this whole chain of generations. Weaving the stories about what's important to them, what they've done, telling them the story about when they were born. Do you remember the time when you... this was another tradition that was really powerful. Cal was fortunate in having a grandmother who told stories.
Doesn't that look like a cute grandma? When I was married, and one day I stopped in at my grandmother's, and I just sat there and asked her questions, and she told me stories of her life. And she told me of how, when she was a little girl growing up in Lehigh, her father and mother and the family in the summer would sit on their big front porch, and her dad would play the guitar and they'd sing. The people walking by would see that, and they'd come in and join them singing or visiting. The children would come in and they'd play night games. In the winter time, he would flood one of his fields, and they'd make an ice skating rink, and that the whole family enjoyed. And then as she got older, her brother was on a mission and had a companion that turned out to be my grandfather, and she talked about how she met him and what they did. Went to Saul there, and then they got married, and she talked about moving to Idaho on a farm. And she also talked about my mom's birth. And she said that she was on the table or whatever, they delivered her at home, and she could feel my mom starting to come. So she yelled, "Ambrose," that's my grandfather, "Ambrose, get in here, the baby's coming." And the doctor who was talking to my grandfather says, "No, it's not going to be now. You're too early, Mrs. Call." And a minute later, my grandmother yelled, "Ambrose, if you don't get in here right now, this baby's coming. If you don't get in here right now, I'll never talk to you again." Boy, he was in there, and that doctor was right behind him. My mom was being born. Her head was out. The doctor delivered her. She was a blue baby. I don't know what that means, but he had to dip her in water and stuff to revive her. And then my grandmother told me of the time when my mom was 18 months old. She wanted a drink of water. She walked in the kitchen, and she said to her mother was right here preparing supper, and my mom said, "Drink, drink." Grandma wasn't paying attention, and then my mom noticed right here on the cupboard was a cup that she used all the time to drink. She reached up on her little tippy toes and put her hands around it and pulled it to the edge, and it tipped over. And the hot grease that my grandmother had just put in fell down onto her head and face and neck. And she told me that story, and she cried as she told me. 60 years later, she was still blaming herself. And then she told me about my mom, how she grew up, how the kids treated her. "Hey, Scarface, where did you get that face? If I had a face like yours, I would put a bag on it." And you know what? I asked my mom many times if she was teased with it. She'd always say no. She never told me this story, but sitting at my grandmother's knee, I learned the story of my mom. And so I confronted her. "Mom, were you ever teased?" No, not much. The kids were nice to me." I said, "Mom, Grandma told me that you were teased pretty badly." She says, "Oh, I guess I was a little bit." But see, the story my grandmother told allowed me to ask more questions for my mom. Many of these stories that I've just shared with you are found in our book under different resiliency strengths. But the point is, the traditions, the stories, sitting at my grandmother's feet, listening to her. I got about a 2 or 3 hour oral history of my grandfather. He was much more verbal than my grandmother. And I've taped both of them sitting at their feet. What a treasure for me and a treasure for my children. So according to current research, and I think this is important, according to current research, there are major benefits of family stories, and that the children are more resilient when they hear these stories, learn where they came from, and they tend to have less depression, less anxiety, happier, and so on. And ladies and gentlemen, the more children know about their own family, the healthier and the more resilient they become. As I listened to my grandfather's story as a missionary and some of the challenges he had, boy, I'm a stronger, better person as a result of that. We know that for thousands of years, stories have been passed down. And the great storytellers, we don't have any famous storytellers, but I'm going to spend a few minutes on storytelling and telling in the. Yeah, he was great. He was one of the great ones. But stories, family stories are a great way, a great tradition. I have, it's crazy, but I have written little short vignettes that are probably around 500, 600 words, and most about my history, the family history. Some of them I made up a little bit, but I've got about 170 of those written. And I'm going to pass those on to my grandkids. Many of them are still in our book, but we want you to know that stories are powerful as a resiliency technique and as a family tradition. Our grandkids know that when Grandpa's around, the story is coming. Stories bring meaning into our lives. They convey our values, our family values, our emotions. They can aid us in reaffirming and validating our lives and experiences, and have the ability to help us connect with each other, as well as with our inner selves and with others within the society, the family, or the society outside. Stories are a great family tradition. I think it's important for us to know that no child or family is immune to adversity and its challenges. It'd be nice if we could give our little daughter a needle and a shot and say, hey, shoot me in the behind. And that makes me immune to the challenges, but we can't. You know that great American philosopher, Al Capone? He said one time, you get more done with a kind word and a gun than you do with just a kind word. And you know, it's kind of similar to this. We cannot inject immunity into our lives like we inject immunity for polio or measles or whatever. But we have to develop it in the kids as they're getting older, as they're growing up. Make it a tradition to tell family stories. Whenever the family gathers, tell stories. My grandkids love to hear stories about their dad. Was he a perfect dad? I mean, he made them think he was perfect. So when I tell them a story that he wasn't quite perfect, whoa, they grab their attention. Is that really you, Dad? Involve multiple generations. I am so grateful that I had grandparents who were willing to share their stories with me. And I grew to love them more and to consider them, instead of ideal and perfect, I learned that I'm like them. I make mistakes. I horse around. They admit it, and I admit it. We can share stories as we're walking along. In the car, as I mentioned, we shared stories. Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving. It's wonderful to share stories. Now, this is a story that's good. Several years ago, our oldest son lived in Florida. He was in the military, and he was launching satellites at Cape Canaveral. And we went to visit him, and we decided we were going to go to the Everglades. And we were going to rent some canoes and go out. Well, so we got 2 canoes, and Ann went out with the first group, and I went out when they got back. I went out with my son and daughter-in-law. So the 3 of us went in 1 canoe. We had a great time. We went around the Everglades. We saw alligators, and we saw all sorts of different birds. And, you know, with some alligators, we saw their mouths open, ready to leap or whatever, swim after somebody. We saw some of them sleeping. Well, as we were about within, for me, to that lady in the red back there, the edge of this room, we were that far away from we were close to the end of the trip. And my son, in a smart aleck way, says, hey, Jenny, that's his wife, Do you know do you know what Grandpa'd do if we'd fall in? She said, what? He'd scream like a baby. And I says, oh yeah, watch this. And I didn't mean to, but I just tipped a little too much, and we fell in. From here to that lady was an alligator. And we could only do the thing that we normally do as a family, laugh. Fortunately, that alligator wasn't hungry, or he could tell from a distance that none of us were very good meat. But post-haste, we were just almost to the end of the trip. Post-haste, the rangers hopped in with their canoe, got down there and got us out before that alligator changed his mind. What a great story. We tell that story with our kids, and they laugh and they remember that. Still, we tell it often, and they still have a frequent, a good experience with it. You know, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that I am grateful for the traditions that were established in my family. I am grateful for grandparents who told the stories. I'm grateful for my father that talked about his life on the farm, and my mother who was burned and shared with us. And she's the one that became resilient and taught us how to be resilient, because she had to go through it and experience. I'm grateful for sisters who pushed me and drove me crazy, but still, I love them. I'm grateful for a beautiful wife who encourages me. When I got my doctorate, I was the last one in the class to graduate. Everybody graduated in about 4 years. I was still going. After everybody graduated, I said to Ann, Ann, I'm so dumb. You know, I'm struggling. Everybody's graduated, and I'm still here. I had 3 more years. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? My wife said to me, she asked a question, do you know what they call the person that graduates last? I says, yeah. And she said, what? Dummy. She said, no, they call him doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful for her. We are grateful for being here. Thank you.